dude, to me, I'm sitting with a legend. I knew that. That's the thing. Like with him, I was such a Vulgar came out. I mean, Cowboys from Hell came out, then Vulgar came out. Vulgar changed everybody. If you wanted to play any heavy music, you everything you were writing, you threw away and said, I got to start over. That just desecrated all of everybody. Metallica backed up. They were the biggest at that point. They were winning all the Grammys, all the non-stupid shit, but it was like that album just was affecting everybody. And it was just real. It was like, see, here's the deal. We're a rock band, right? We're rebellion art. And I think we forget that. We get lost in the practice. No, we're rebellion art. Without the rebellion art part of it, it's just notes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cory's been kind enough to let me, he's my compatriot along with Siobhán Cronin, introduce this show 2020. 2020-d.com.
I've begrudgingly allowed you to start this.
Well, because we have a super freaking amazing guest this week, and I say this just because, like, some people that come on, like, we like them, and some people, like, we really like them. And, man, I fucking love this guy. I fucking love him. And what a great guitarist. What a great dude. What a great producer. Like, what a great human being. From the band Seether, but also not to be lost on Stuck Mojo and Stereomud. I got Wicked Stone before this. By the way, I love the song "Pain." We were just talking about, like, Cory, tell the story. But we didn't say his name, by the way. It's Cory Lowery.
Yeah. Cory Lowery, great first name.
Cory.
Yeah, so
with the added E, for the extra vowel in his words.
He did buy the extra vowel. But it's funny because this is a guy that I had no idea existed, as sometimes our guests are, and then I'm super happy to now know him. But Ben and I were at the Starset show a few weeks back, and they were playing with Seether, and so we got to see Seether. They killed it. They have so many hit songs. You know every song. You can sing all the lyrics. And I remember seeing the guitarist and thinking that guy's nuts, and didn't put too much stock into it. But then we get to talk to him today and find out that not only is a really great guy, but he was in Stereomud, and not only that, but he wrote the music in Stereomud, and Stereomud was on my iPod in 2000 and whatever, freaking 3 or something like that.
Old days.
I'm sitting in high school blasting Pain by Stereomud for probably months, because at the time I was very obsessive about the music I was listening to. And then, just having the chance to talk to him today, and it was a really big full circle moment. And a reason that I'm grateful to have this kind of platform with you guys.
Well, he had some amazing stories to tell, and it was a pleasure for me to be able to get to know him on the tour we've been doing with Seether the last couple weeks. I guess it'll be over by the time this episode comes out, but let's jump right in. Part 1 with my friend, our new friend, Cory Lowery of Seether. Stay tuned. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Siobhán Cronin here, as always, with Benny and Cory, and we're excited to bring you another episode of 2020. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And this week, I'm very excited to introduce my new friend, touring mate at the moment, Cory Lowery of Seether, guitar player, incredible musician. It's been really awesome to get to know you a little bit in person.
Stereomud! Awesome.
Yeah.
It's been an awesome tour with you. You're the sweetest. You are the awesome.
Thank you. No, it's been awesome. It's been really fun, and I'm glad that we're kind of back on the road and like meshing with other bands. I feel like it's been way too long, and I was super pumped that you were up for doing this because it's really cool to watch you play and like hear some of your thoughts on music. So I'm excited for you to share all of your wisdom with my friends here and all of our listeners, however many that may be.
Yeah, it's interesting for me too, because I've obviously tried. Ben and I both try to catch Siobhán whenever she comes by through New England. So we were at the show, and I watched you on stage, and then a week and a half later, Siobhán's like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna be on the show now." It's like cool.
Awesome.
So like you guys killed it. The whole show was so cool. Especially with Seether having so many hits, it like blows your mind. You're sitting there like
you're one of those bands.
Every song, I'm like,
casual.
oh yeah, that was on the radio. Yep, that was on the radio. Yep, that was on the radio.
We get that a lot, I think people are starting to put faces. we've never really we're that band like, look how cool we are. We just like to write music, play, put records out and have fun. But I think it is important people make a face to this. Now we're in that place, and the arena world is always fun. So got to put yourself out there a little bit more, I guess.
Well, I think Cory really hit on it because, look, man, we talked to John Garabedian, the DJ extraordinaire, and he basically said that most people, they stop liking new music after 20 years old. So it's like Pink Floyd, Queen, the Eagles, nothing after, fucking Aerosmith done with Mirrors, that was fucking sellout. That's how, depending on how old you are, that's how your brain can be. But
sure.
You still exist. So if you were alive in the 80s, Prince and the Eagles. I feel like if you were alive in 2000 till now and you don't actually know your band, even just from ambiance walking through the Hard Rock Cafe Casino, you're literally living under a fucking rock.
It happens. What's funny is when I'll have a construction guy come over to work on my house or something, and he's kind of like, oh, yeah, man, so we can do this, and then he'll walk in and he'll go through my studio or whatever and see, that. Wait a minute, you're in Seether? Man, we're gonna discount this, and I'm like, man, be cool all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Perks of the gig.
Yeah, perks of the gig. I guess.
It's like the inverse. It's like if you were a hot chick, my fiance got bath fitters and they're 10,000% overpriced and have the most ridiculous cutthroat shit. And they're just like, yeah, we're just going to make it better. And she's like, okay, let's sign this ridiculous contract and you can take my tongue. And whereas you're a dude, they know that you're in a band. So automatically, if you're in a band and you have records on the wall, you must be rich. And they're like, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the guy we should give the discount to. Fuck you, man.
Let's nail him to the cross. It's interesting. Through the years, through years of playing music and stuff, we all have been doing this for a long time, and you get to meet so many people, and there's so many projects you work on, producing to being in a band to a songwriter for other bands, and I don't really. Sometimes I get a little, I just would like to work. I like to look forward, and I don't really focus on what's happening. I need to slow down a lot more and pay attention to the present, I guess, a lot more but I'm so excited because there's always something new to work on. There's a new record. We're doing a new record now, or I'm getting ready to work with this guy or this girl. And it's been, I think I don't want to slow down and pay attention to any of that. I just want to move forward. And later on in life, when people say, hey man, do we work together? And, you have all that. I mean, because, that's what we are. We're servants kind of, we serve people and we're trying to make something cool happen for the society and, and write stuff that everyone can relate to and stuff like that. So it's important to keep going. I think you do get old when you slow down and say, look how cool I am and what my accomplishment.
Ben must be super old then.
Yeah, by those standards.
Well, I feel like the way he was describing it, it was if Bill and Ted could describe, we're servants to the people and everything must be excellent. I just love it, man.
That's the whole focus, is make everything undeniable, make it badass. If it's not badass, if it's not real, hardest thing we do is try to be ourselves, Everybody's, you can get lost in that whole, let me be this person or that person. But, that's, people see through that pretty quick these days, I think,
Yeah. Well, speaking of being you, before we get too carried away, I want to just introduce you sort of to the listeners that may not know you. And I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about your story about getting into guitar, how you got exposed to music, your early influences, how you got on the path of being a musician.
Sure. My mom and dad played music. They were signed before I was born. And so I was walking around, with musicians through my whole life, bell bottoms and, hippies and stuff like that. And we didn't have a lot of toys, so there was a lot of instruments around. So we just picked up, and we never learned one instrument. it was learn everything. You know, like my dad was a huge influence as far as saying, hey, I say, how do you play G, C, and D? And he's like, just watch me. You know, he never showed us one thing, but I would watch him. You know, I idolized him. You know, that was the first music I ever heard. You know, my first vision in life was being on this roadie's shoulders, and I had his coat over my legs, and I was looking through his afro, and the stage was red, and I was like, my parents have superpowers. I mean, I thought they were making the stage red. I didn't know, you know, there were lights or anything, and just the smell of the whole thing and the loudness, the people singing and stuff like that. So I was drawn to it at a super young age. My whole family, you know, my brothers were as well. But so I started out on guitar and bass and kind of drums and stuff like that. And Christmas, I wanted my own guitar, and I think and Clint wanted to play drums. He was playing drums at that point, and we couldn't afford a whole drum set, so I gave him my guitar, and there was a bass, and I started playing bass. And I was 11 years old, and there was a band in my neighborhood. I had a big Earth amp, this huge 8x10 cabinet, which as kids, they thought that I was the cool. I got in the band because I got a big bass amp, basically. But I was also, I could play all these things. And so I got into the band. I started playing bass professionally. Like by 15, I was playing with my father. I played with him for 3 years, and he had perfect pitch, perfect timing. And it was incredibly hard to play with him. Still to this day, the hardest thing I've ever done in music was play with him. You know, he would hit a flat or sharp note, and he would give you that look. And I mean, scary. That look, you know, that look. And it was just, he had a discipline for the stage. If you're going to get on stage, you got to know your stuff. You know, there's no more thinking about notes when you're on stage. It had to be you know, now you actually get to play the song. Other than that, you were thinking about the song. So I always took that serious, and the movements and stuff like that had to be just whatever happens, you know, like people like, I like the way you move. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, like stuff like that. And next thing I know, we started just keep writing songs. Clint and I joined a band. We went out on tour. We've been touring since I was 15, you know, so it's been a long journey. And through those, I've been in Stereomud, Dark New Day, Stuck Mojo, Empire, and, you know, like, and worked with hundreds of bands as far as producing at this point. I got to meet so many amazing artists and producers and stuff like that. And I think if you stay open and ask questions, and they were so cool to teach, you know, just learn. How does this work? How does this compressor EQ work? How does the console work and stuff like that? And I was fascinated by the entire thing. It wasn't just, hey, let me just learn guitar. I mean, that was sitting on my bed over here like hours, and I didn't have friends growing up. I had my guitar, you know?
Yeah.
And,
no, it seems you'd told me a few stories that you were so influenced by your dad, and you learned a lot about discipline. I'm curious, what sort of music were your parents playing, or what was like one of your early memories of being influenced by a sound or a certain band? Like, was there a style that you were drawn to?
Stylistic wise, I loved, like, my dad was a very soulful, like blues, soulful singer. He could sing like Otis Redding, and I was just like Percy Sledge, but he would also go into the Hendrix thing with the guitar, and so he was heavily influenced by the heaviness of stuff, but he had this funkiness to him, you know. It was all feel and emotion, and he jammed. He never told me what songs we were playing. He would just start playing, and you were like, you had to be on it, and your ear gets really quick to hear. You know, I didn't want to learn what, you know, pitch, you know, was or anything. I was just like, I just want to play with them so bad. Like, as soon as I would hear the G, okay, go to G, you know, and start playing. It helped with my writing. that was the big thing for me. Was he said, learn all the instruments, learn at least enough to have an solid understanding, so when you hear it in your head, you'll be able to write it all out. And so that's where the writing began. And you write some of my favorite songs are when I first started, because they're just absolutely you pour your heart out into it. I thought they were like massive. Mm-hmm. They're the worst probably, but but yeah, it's a fun career to be in, if you take all of that in. It's not just one thing, out here touring, there's the show, but then there's 23 other hours. Mm-hmm. So much to do if you want to do it,
So something that you just glossed over, and I guess being a stoner, I didn't put 2 and 2 until like Wikipedia like freshened me up, that your brother is Clint Lowery, which you just kind of casually mentioned, who's also in the band Seven Dust, who I saw for the first time November 27th, 1997, because that was with Snot. Because I skipped the second set of the Fish show that was going on at the Centrum to go and catch that show, because Fish played 2 sets, and I remember being like, do I go to Seven Dust or do I go to Fish, because it was the first time Seven Dust had come to town, and you guys are brothers, and I've always thought that he was a fucking Jedi. And I think now listening about your dad, dad reminds me of someone like what I hear about like Prince was like, or Frank Zappa was like, or all these like amazing musicians are like, oh, they didn't tell me the set. Like Chuck Berry never told people the set. He would just yell the key sometimes. Old what I heard.
School, man. Old school.
Yeah. And do you feel like that like really influenced because like clearly you guys have a genetic pool that's pretty fucking strong from what I've gathered from seeing Seether and Seven Dust. Totally do you think that helped a lot?
Yeah, because like we would sit at home, and I think you influence each other. Yeah, he'd hear me rehearse, I would rehearse, he would rehearse. Who can rehearse the longest? I mean, 12 hours of the day goes by, and you're still in there, killing it. And at the end of the day, I think that fun part of the competition part of, hey man, let's put it in there. Let's we were proud of it. It wasn't like you win or anything. The only thing you win is, hey man, I'm better today than I am yesterday, and that was cool with us, So, and him and I have played in bands together and written so many songs together, but it was also important for each other to have our own thing. You know what I mean? He has such a
that, dude. You guys fucking did that.
Music, and he wants to express all that stuff. It's hard. I think when you get too many people wanting to express that hard, I mean, I love working with all these bands and writing songs and stuff. He's got a solo career, Seven Dust. He's constantly working, and I think we still, this is just part of who we are at that point. You know what I mean? And I'm so happy, and to me, Seven Dust is one of the most underrated bands to this day.
Yeah, no, that's amazing to hear. I want to go back and ask you about sort of building your career a little bit. And, you mentioned you got into playing professionally really, really young. Like, what was the trajectory starting with your first band? Like, how did you sort of escalate to a more national level or being, successful? Because there's something that happens there, and I'm curious what the process was.
Yeah. So I played with them for 3 years. And at that point, Clint and I saw Clint was like becoming a really good guitar player, and I knew some other guys in town, and that's so I just picked the best musicians. That you got to find the best in your area, and we found Troy McLaurin, who plays with Evanescence, and Bevan Davies plays with Danzig, to a bunch of other people, and Donnie Hanbay was signed with Double Drive, and so that group, we learned a lot together for about 6 years of touring. The important part at that point, I think, in your life is to go out and earn it and learn how to tour. Learn how, for me, it was like we never got anything given to us. We always had to work real hard for everything, and that band got to a point where we all knew we needed to make a decision of the next level, and everybody's ready for their wings to sprout, right? So I joined Stuck Mojo at that point, and they're just getting ready to take off. I could feel it, like they're taking off. Seven Dust was taking off, and stuff. The other guys were finding their bands, and it was just that time for all of us to spread our wings. Now I'm signed to Century Media, and we're touring the world, and that was crazy. To me, it was like, here we are in Europe, for the first time, and, meeting all these new fans and stuff like that. And, it was an incredible experience. And then you have times in music where something's not clicking and you want to start something else. And that was for me, the direction after about 4 years in Stuck Mojo. I had all these new songs and stuff, and I wanted to put together a band, and that's where Stereomud came in. And we got signed to Loud Records, and it was a hip hop label. Mm-hmm. I'm like a hip hop label. We were doing all these things, and this was with the guys from Life of Agony, Propane, and to form Stereomud. And the songs, man, were just something that was my baby. I cared. This was my first shot for me to write, and here's what I sound, here's what I can do, and the guys were awesome. And, but we got signed, and it was a humongous deal. This was the first actual big deal, and we were with Loud Records with Columbia using their radio team. And that thing was just, a juggernaut of touring, and the first time that I ever gone that high, number 3 and on radio, mm-hmm. And I was so nervous. I'm like, it sucks. As soon as we were done the record, I'm like, this is the worst. And, like you get so you're so, have you ever been so into your stuff that you're like, I don't know, maybe I'm just bullshitting myself. Maybe I've lied to myself.
Absolutely.
And am I?
No, none of us have had any self-doubt ever. No.
I think that's all it is. I think that we're the most insecure people in one sense, like it seems like we're confident, but at the end of the day, I think it's that insecurity.
Let me tell you something about our band. We're in a band called Lost Symphony, okay? Mm-hmm. And this started off as like a dream project for basically, it's the COVID project before COVID, because I basically sat in my basement and composed shit with these keyboards, like Yes. And pretty much sent them out. I was like, what would happen if we got Marty Friedman? What would happen if we got Skolnick from Testament? What would happen if we got that dude Rusty Cooley, who was faster than Yngwie? And we did that. We fucking did it. We actually did it, Siobhán. But all that's the list of guitarists is crazy. But one thing, I remember Jeff Loomis, who I'm guessing you're aware is he's a fucking Jedi. He's a Jedi science. There's a point in your life where you go I'm never gonna be Jason Becker. Jeff Loomis is
to be Jason Becker. By the way, no, I saw your thing. I got real fast. I'm giving you props for the thing you do for Jason Becker.
I love Jason.
That is incredible. That guy's
come play something.
Another planet.
Dude, well, just so you know, if you come back with Seether, I would love to put one of those guitars in your hand if you want to play one of them on the show.
Out.
Dude, Jason would go out of his... Here's the thing, and I'm going to say this again. The one thing, and I appreciate you talking about Jason, because, I don't like to blow it up too much, but, Jason, at this point, he has ALS, for people that don't know. If you don't know about Jason Becker, look him up. He's the Olympic guitarist of all time. And what he did by 19 is better than almost any human being by the time that they pass away. And right now, because he's stuck in his own mind, the only thing I can think I can do that I can help him or impact is, besides, obviously we raised a lot of money to give him better life, but to entertain him. So we had Nina Strauss played Schools Out with Alice Cooper, who even gave him a shout out. I could not believe it. Because of COVID, they had to do it on their phones. Sure. And I was like, I thought it was just going to be Nita. No. Alice Cooper. And Jason went out of his fucking mind. And I got to tell you, I started crying because listen, man, I'm a piece of shit. But that kept me out of hell for at least a week. Because he was so excited.
He's the reason we sat on the couch or the bed and practiced so hard. He was he was okay, we're never going to get there, but if we don't try, we'll never know. You know, like
never.
And even when you found out, he was like one of those guys. You don't even when you find out. Okay, I'm going to be probably this good. You know what I mean? This is how fast this will ever move, probably, and all that stuff. You were happy to say he's still the king. You know, he's still the king. That guy was coming up with stuff. I mean, what? It's tragic, but at the same time, we're still talking about him today. You know, we're still
it's one of those things.
How amazing he was. You know.
Well, and the point that I was getting at with Jeff Loomis is that I remember Marty Friedman and him. We put him together as like a cacophony. I didn't tell Marty because Marty would never play ball with this. If you know Marty Friedman, he's a little bit cantankerous. I love him. He's my hero, but he's cantankerous. If I said, let's do a cacophony homage, he'd be like, that's not happening. So I kind of like snuck the pandas into the cage with Jeff Loomis and Marty Friedman. And when Jeff played on it, I sent it to Marty, and Marty kind of edited it back, and I sent it back to Jeff, and I sent it to him. And Marty edited out like 90% of his guitars. And Jeff played fucking like a goddamn champion. Like a champion. And literally, he was like, I knew he wouldn't like him. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, listen, if I played 1/1,000,000th as good as that dude did, just shitting into a fucking guitar, I would be like, oh yeah, look at my schnutz. Marty Friedman at 5'4" makes like 6'4" Jeff Loomis scared because he played in cacophony as he should be.
And that comes back to like the whole self-doubt thing and how, you know, no matter where you're at, I think everyone experiences that. And if you don't experience that, it probably means you're not trying as hard as you should. Like, you know, you should kind of always have that voice in the back of your head that's like, can I do better? What can I do to make this, you know, more important? And just to give you a shout out on that Stereomud Pain lived on my first generation iPod for years. And I used to always rock the fuck out to that song.
Awesome,
it was a great track.
Thank you so much, man.
Play some Stereomud on this perpetual burn guitar. This is the one, man. If you Google it right now, look at the little fucking pink goddamn thing right here. This is it. I feel ashamed to try to sweep pick on it, but I'll hold it for this episode. For Jason. By the way, Cory, if you could be kind enough, ALS awareness for Jason at the bottom of this. You can go to the neuroticguitarist.com. And Cory, I would like to say that you're now on notice. You've brought up Jason, and I am going to haunt you until you do something for him with one of these guitars.
Absolutely, man. I would love to.
Perfect. Practice now. Start.
Like for me, it touches a lot because, like, when I talk about my dad ended up getting Parkinson's.
Oh my God!
And
I'm sorry.
And you know what's weird about music? For many years, he would shake and stuff like that. But when he would play, all of it would go like back to normal. So there's something about this music with the mind and the brain that helps you focus and get that thing. It was incredible to watch, and he was always super. He laughed and made jokes about it. He was just like one of us, just a regular musician, but like just like to watch him deal with that and watch how the music could actually slow and help him. I mean, same with Jason Becker, the fact that he can do writing and there are things going on, the things he's doing, the things that his father did as far as helping him be able to communicate music. It's insane. It's like, it's so off the charts and so cool that, you don't even have to know who he is, just know his story a little bit, and you'll be affected by how it's inspiration.
I'm going to blow your mind right now because this blew my mind. So when I did that video, I got a call from his mom because Jason obviously can't call me because he has ALS. So people, if you don't know, if you haven't learned it yet, please go Google Jason Becker story or what have you and find and what Cory was just talking about. Basically, when Jason got ALS and couldn't work anymore, he devised a system with his eyes so he could basically talk to his dad with his eyes so he could still communicate instead of being trapped in his mind. And they even developed computer software where he could move his eyes and continue to write psychotically good music. Incredible. Better music than you could ever imagine or fathom with his eyes. So it's one of those things where it's like, so I get a call. And it's Serena, who he wrote a song for, his handlers, I think, / girlfriend, and his mom. and she's talking, and it's like when you watch the YouTube of his dad doing it for the news for ABC, and it's like how he can read his eyes so fast because you could tell he's taking care of this guy all the time. Like his dad literally,
man. It's true love.
Gary Becker, sent me a book of poetry that he wrote. So this guy writes poetry and draws, does paintings and stuff. And he's just the most nice, down to earth, just loving dude. And instead of letting this stuff bum everybody out, they're the most upbeat people. And Jason called me and said, some angels don't have wings after he watched that. And I know I'm a scumbag from Boston, but I'll tell you right now, having his mom tell me that Jason Becker's literally using an eye system that you've seen on ABC News to tell her that I'm an angel, which is a lie, Jason Becker, but I'll take it all day.
Dude,
I was even telling you this now. I feel like I'm lying and I'm bragging, and there's just
no. We'll give you credit, man. I mean, seriously, I saw that.
It's crazy.
I saw that about you, and I was like, that's a super incredible thing that you're doing for him. You know what I mean?
I appreciate you appreciating that.
There are people that step out. You don't have to do any of this. You know what I mean? You do it, and because that guy affected you a certain way, and you want people to understand what that really was. And I really appreciate it as a guitar player, as a musician in general, what you do for that whole cause. I really think it's over the top cool.
Yeah, and we'll have links to those the hashtag and the other videos and stuff in the description here. So be sure to check that out. Kind of on the topic of Jason Becker and guitar heroes, who were you looking up to when you were kind of developing your style in guitar playing? Aside from the people directly around you, who were your kind of guitar heroes?
Guitar heroes, I mean, same as everyone else probably. You look at Eddie Van Halen, and to me, Dimebag, I actually got to tour with Dimebag, and when I was with Stuck Mojo and Pantera before they broke up. And I'll tell you right now, maybe second to none in that genre was Dimebag. I mean, incredible, It was mind blowing to watch every single night. It was like they were on, Dimebag's 4 feet from me, watching us do our thing, and of course we're gonna watch, but because he's Dimebag, but we had a who could play the most Van Halen contest in the concert, we and I'm like, well, we're going on first. Let's play, House of Pain. We're gonna do the cool ones. And they go on, and they're just whipping out Van Halen song, and the Pantera fans are like, and dude, by the time he kicks in to Pantera, I mean, it was the earth was coming apart. It was so cool. Just so many cool stories. I mean, he was a down to earth guy, and there again, he left us something that we'll never be able to reproduce. Just like Becker. There's certain guys that are there's going to be something special about them eternally. We'll always look back. I would ask him his influence. Eddie Van Halen's his influence. Stevie Ray Vaughan. We would talk a lot about Stevie Ray Vaughan. Dude, we would listen to Little Wing on repeat of Stevie Ray Vaughan, and just get hammered and deliver 10 times over and over, just dude, listen, no, right here, and listen to his vibrato, all these things. And then I'm so fortunate to have some of those memories and of him, and loved him to death, man. But yeah, I mean, as far as playing, my dad he's always going to be my first go-to as far as guitar, because he had those weird, the big chords, not just the bar chords.
Yeah.
My dad was he knew the bar chords. I'll go to my rock guys for that, but my dad was he could play, a lot of jazz and stuff like that. So I'd learn all these. I didn't know what they were called. I was just look at his hands and go, and blues chords and stuff like that, and feel. To me, I see on TikTok. I get lost in that thing sometimes because the amount of talent that's out there. Can I tell you that the best talent in the world will never be signed?
Oh, I believe. Yeah, absolutely.
Ever.
Yeah.
And you'll never know them. Probably you'll just come across them one day, but they have no interest. Touring is hard. Everyone thinks that it's, hey man, you're out there and it's awesome, but it's, can you leave your family? Can you leave your friends? And for years, it's like you're gone, 300 days out of the year in the beginning is what we were doing. And
oh my God.
so that's a hard act. That's a hard thing to do. And I got cousins that are amazing players, but they have no interest in touring life. They'll sit on that porch and bluegrass it to death. You know what I mean? But they don't want to go out on tour. That's me and Clint, our dumbasses. Tour, but it's you love music, and it doesn't matter. To me, it's not about the fame part of it so much as like just playing because you love it, man. You play because you have to. You don't play because I'm trying to be cool. You're playing because it's just something that comes to you, and you're trying to express yourself in a certain way. And the TikTok thing's got me freaked out because I look on these and I see these kids just killing it. Unbelievable. They don't even know. I don't even think they know what they are yet.
Can I tell you something that freaked me the fuck out? Because I always hate this because people will be like, here's the 7-year-old girl that played Eruption from Japan. And I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks for showing me a Japanese girl. But like, did she ever bang your girlfriend and smoke cigarettes and like that's a different sound.
This analogy gets weirder every episode.
Okay.
No, but I mean, it's with Dimebag
No, we talk
Darrell,
about this. Yeah, we talk about this a lot.
But with, okay, so there's all these people who are super, super, super like crazy technical. But at what point do you say, like, because Dimebag Darrell, like when he walked out, like I'll tell you my first moment with Dimebag was Ozfest 97. Okay. I didn't even really like heavy stuff. But I was like, okay. And I remember he played This Love. And I was like, oh, finally something a little relaxing. And I remember when he did his like first bend, he had this big long red beard and he just pointed up. And he bent up. And I was like, what the fuck was that? It was a pinch harmonica. I didn't know what that was at the time. And then he did this dive bomb and he pointed down as a guy poured wild turkey into his mouth. And I said to him, but then he started doing the solo. And I'm like, who is this man? He's playing Converse. He's spitting out fucking drinks. He's like fucking literally like he's got the guys from Kiss. I don't really know Kiss, but I know Kiss is supposed to be cool. So I'm like, all right, so he likes Kiss. And he's got the fuck. And I just remember leaving going, what the fuck did I just see? And I gotta tell you that since that moment, I went back to my guitar teacher when I listened to the Cemetery Gates and said, what's that sound? He goes, it's called a pinch harmonic. And it changed my life. I mean, I love Zakk Wylde after that, but like literally Dimebag Darrell was the first time I internalized that. And you're talking about listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan with him. What the fuck was that really like? What was going through your head?
Dude, to me, I'm sitting with a legend. I knew that, that's the thing. Like with him, I was such a Vulgar came out. I mean, Cowboys from Hell came out, then Vulgar came out. Vulgar changed everybody. If you wanted to play any heavy music, you everything you were writing, you threw away and said, I got to start over. That just desecrated all of everybody. Metallica backed up. They were the biggest at that point. They were winning all the Grammys, all the non-stupid shit, but it was like that album just was affecting everybody, and it was just real. It was like see, here's the deal. We're a rock band, right? We're rebellion art, and I think we forget that. We get lost in the practice. No, we're rebellion art. Without the rebellion arts part of it, it's just notes. You know what I mean? And they just came across as it was just powerful. It empowered you. It gave you this feeling. And man, and he did it with such ease. Like you're saying, I watched that guy get hammered and just like, but his hands were like this, like they were their own species. You know what I mean? It's incredible to watch. I mean, the entire band, just like every now and then you find that group that everybody's in tune with each other. You know what I mean? Phil's voice, Vinny, an incredible drummer, Rex on bass, just the tonalities work so well together, and you come across it and it's just something special. That's what that band was. That there's a lot of new bands. Gojira is a phenomenal band right now. It's kicking. But I listen to everything though. Like I'll go from that to old to new. I like studying the sonic sounds of things. I'm all over the place. When I listen to that. The soundtrack for Stranger Days, man. I listen to that soundtrack, and I'm like, this is like the '80s, but like this new sound. Like, how are they getting that? And so I got so into that movie that I ended up doing a score for this short, scary movie, and it was like my first score. I was like, I want to learn how to do that, and I ended up winning this France award thing. And I'm like, that it's just such it's a crazy world, man. If you just put yourself out there, say, hey man, that was inspiring. I want to learn how to do that, and try, be honest with yourself and try. Make, what sounds cool. The thing is with music is just do it until it's good. So many people just write a riff and say, okay, that's a riff. No. Play, it's how you play it. There's how many songs are a 3-chord progression? Why can that guy play a 3-chord progression? It just sounds different. You gotta it's how the heart of that. And that's where that whole art form to me is amazing.
Well, that's the difference between the people on TikTok, a lot of them for me. And I'm not taking away from the fact that you have, like, look, there's some of these guys that are doing all these slap crazy, ridiculous techniques because, like Nuno lamented on our show about well, we didn't have YouTube and Eddie Van Halen played with his back to the audience and, we just had to fucking look at our friends and we got, our Uncle Bobby and that's it. And fuck you guys. Cause now you have people like who grew up listening to Extreme or Van Halen who are with their kids.
Those things created Bumblebee. So, I mean, that's fine too.
Yeah. Right. But the thing is, at what point though, and you're talking about it, so like Miles Davis, we're joking around before, like Miles Kennedy versus Miles Davis, and Miles Davis, one of my favorite quotes he has, and I'm pretty sure it's Miles Davis. He's like, it's 20% about the note you're playing and 80% of the attitude of the motherfucker playing the note. And
totally. Remember when Miles Davis did it was the black and white movie, another amazing piece. Like he did a black and white movie where he just plays, he's watching the screen and just ad-libbing. And that's the entire soundtrack. It's an incredible piece of art, and no one really even knows about it. No one ever sits and says, "I'm gonna listen to that." But it's just like, I watched a thing on it. And I watched it, and I'm like, I'm gonna listen to this thing. What was he? And one take, the whole movie's done, and he just plays through it's just a trumpet and him. And that's the soundtrack, and it's fucking incredible. But Miles Kennedy is an amazing guitar player too, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, he's stupid good.
He's
humble
good,
about
dude.
it too. He's a jerk. He's the kind of guy that could play Jason Becker, and he's like, oh no, dude, I just fiddle around. Like, meanwhile, I listened to his entire new solo record, and it's scary good how his guitar playing is. It's like fusion-y. It's like, is that Tony McAlpine or is that fucking Miles Kennedy? But yeah, it's Miles Kennedy.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like, you find your influences, like, when people say, who's your favorite guitar player and all that, like, man, I come from a family of it. My brother's an amazing guitar player. And you grew up around an entire family that could play, and they were inspired by cool people. Everybody was inspired by different people, and eventually you say, well, why were you inspired by that? And you want to know. I mean, George Harris, the Beatles wouldn't be the Beatles without those weird secondary guitar parts. You know what I mean? And they were simple, but it was just the perfect notes for that time. It's like, it's not how many notes. And there's a whole genre for for fans that say, man, I can't wait to hear, Michelangelo just like, woo, it's amazing. But there's so many cool things about.
Okay, but you just brought up a good point, because I saw Michelangelo Badio do a 47-minute live Dimebag Darrell Pantera tribute, and it was exactly what you think it'd be. It's him playing every Pantera song perfectly, playing the guitar solos perfectly, but even crazier than perfect. And it's and he did it live. He streamed it live. And the question is, but does he have any friends? And I know he's a really nice guy. In fact, I'm not making fun of him, but I think immediately when I see that level of talent, I'm like,
I think his barber is his only friend, because it's the same haircut since the beginning of time.
Well, and I'll tell you something else about TikTok. So there's something I saw on Loudwire. There's some girl, and she's 18 years old, and she looks like Daria, like the cartoon, and she's this little pleasant, librarian looking girl. And they said this girl embodies the soul of Dimebag Darrell. And I'm like, okay, clickbait. And I go and look at it, and I swear to fucking God, it sounded like Dimebag Darrell, on a Ouija board, was playing through this perfectly demure, nice, pleasant, and she's just looking at the camera. She's not looking at her fingers at all, and she's just playing. And she has the same. You could see the vibrato, the way she's holding it, and she's doing it with such finesse and care. And I'm like, it was the first time I believed in reincarnation. I actually looked when Dimebag Darrell died and when this girl was born, because I've seen it all, dude. If you want to fucking flip yourself out, just Google YouTube girl Dimebag Darrell, and you'll find this one, and it's dead on. Everyone sends me oh, it's the Japanese girl playing Eruption, but it sounds like a Japanese girl playing Eruption. No, this sounds like Dimebag Darrell came back from the fucking dead through this fucking girl, and it's creepy as fuck. And that's all I got to tell you about the YouTube. It scares me, and I don't even want to play anymore.
But then you get into the writing of it. Can she write like
right? Yeah.
Right.
No.
Sure, of course.
Will you ever hear that? No. I mean, you can go to Vegas, and I swear guys sing better than Elvis in Vegas.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
Are they Elvis? You know what I mean?
Well, we talked about this the other day in the dressing room when you wandered in asking about violin stuff, and we were talking about composers and how so many of them had debilitating mental illness, and how that's actually a huge part of the music. No, really though. But it's true. It is odd to watch an amazing classical player that has not experienced any of those things, but they execute it so well that you're like, wow, that really is. I mean, it's odd, but it's right. It comes down to the writing of it, I guess.
It's just, I mean, there's I think there's the depression part of our gig, where you're hyper depressed, I think a lot of writers, and it's your only outlet. It's the only therapist that that works. You know what I mean? And it only works until the next song. And it's this ongoing thing. And even when you go to a therapist, they just find something that, they tell you in all that calm voice, and that sounds cool, but until you can release something. And I think even with fans, I think America was wrecked not going to see live concerts for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I think the country has never been in a shittier spot when you can't have a release through music. And it's the most underrated, no one talks about it, but I'm like, you're watching the country fall apart. And now everybody's back to just straight up bitching. It's not falling apart anymore, and it's coming back together kind of, but when you're sitting at your house and you can't go out and have that release, sing as loud as you want. It was I think it had this weird effect on people.
It's interesting you say that, because I played a festival after September 11th, and I remember all the headliners. So it was supposed to be a local festival in front of 25,000 people with the rock station WAAF that was out here, R.I.P.
Yeah, Mistress Carey, right?
Mistress Carey, hell yeah, dude. Yeah, and the Local Bazooka was the name of the show, and there was a bunch of big bands on, and they all canceled except for Henry Rollins. And I gotta tell you, because I love Henry Rollins more than anybody, because I mean, even as a speaker, as a band, like I could care less. Black Flag changed the world. Well, that song, if you go back and listen to it, is so poignant now, actually, because everything he says, is what you want to hear. And then he's your friend, and then you believe him. But the thing is, he came out in 2001, and I remember everyone canceled. We were all scared, like you're going to be in a large group. Is someone going to be blown up? Is someone going to fly a plane into you? And Rollins just came out on that fucking stage, and it was the most insane havoc. And the guy has the greatest stage presence in the history of fucking time, just with Black Flag. So I remember that, and then I remember not seeing anyone in COVID, which is the longest I've never played live or not seen a live show. And I remember one of the first shows I saw back was Garbage, and Shirley Manson came out on stage, and she started crying. She's like, you don't know how much we appreciate this. And I was sitting there cathartically as a musician going, no, Shirley Manson, I know exactly how much you appreciate this. And we all, like, I sang every Garbage song. I didn't know them, but I Googled the words just so I could feel like I was part of it. And then I saw Alanis Morissette, because that was my childhood. And I just know every song on Jagged Little Pill, and she played the whole thing perfectly. Amazing, and I cried. I cried. But the point was, I needed that so bad. And I didn't know until I needed that. I was literally crying. I had tears coming down my face, knowing that Dave Coulier was, that song You Ought to Know was about him. And I knew that, and I was singing, and I was in 1995 instead of COVID.
It's 2 years.
Rant's over.
9/11, a 2-year 9/11, and it was like it affects people, By the way, Henry Rollins, "Shut Up and Get in the Band's" an amazing book. Check that one.
All of his books are good. All the shows he's ever been on. He has his own publishing company. I just saw him speak live. So my fiance, just as a side note, I take her to things, and she always wonders about my judgment. And I bought her tickets to go see Henry Rollins, and she's like, "Who is it?" I'm like, "It's a speaker." "Is he a comedian?" "Not exactly, but he's funny."
Yeah.
"Well, why do I want to go see him?" "Well, he talks for 3 hours, 2.5 hours, and it's just like off the top of his head, and it's great." She's like, "I really fucking hate you for taking me to this." And then we left, and we got out, and she goes, "Oh my God, for 90 minutes, it went by fast." I'm like, "Sweetheart, you're reading your clock, your watch wrong. It was 2.5 hours." Because that dude literally just ranted about, the craziest shit, because he's Henry Rollins. And I think to myself, is this guy our modern day, Socrates or Descartes? Is fucking Henry Rollins the guy from Black Flag? Like, that's the truth.
As long as he stays out of acting, where he's going to do well, like that one movie.
Flea did it. So did the dude for all the Red Hot Chili Peppers, whatever. Henry Rollins looks angry. And he was in Sons of Anarchy too, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to act to be on that show.
No, man. Listen, the thing about his book was it was just a lot of truth. I mean, it was so hardcore. It was just he created a scene. He knows how to, when he tells a story, it's just, you feel like you're in the stinky club with him. You're like, wow, everybody's bleeding. The manager's not paying you that night. The van's blowing up. The fans. His whole story is amazing, So, yeah, there's a few. I think there's a few more people out there that are kind of like him, What's that one guy? I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I can't, of course, but anyway, Henry Rollins, he was amazing. Remember when he jumped up and kicked? He was so excited. He jumped up and knocked himself out.
I don't remember. No,
dude, he jumped. He's so excited. He comes out on stage, runs out, jumps up, knees himself in the face, and is out.
Holy shit!
They don't play. They don't even fucking play. And I'm like, that is so badass. I'm like, can you imagine being so pumped? Oh, he was in the full Rollins mode, runs out, jumps up, knees himself in the face. I'm like,
I could tell you exactly when I found out he was the coolest, because there was a local radio station that used to play the local stuff, like the college stations, and they'd play whatever they wanted, whether it was Dr. Demento or what. And someone put on Henry Rollins, and there's a track called "The Blueprints for the Destruction of the World." And you could just think about what that's about. It's 12 minutes long. And I remember not knowing who Henry Rollins was. I was like maybe 11, listening on my mono boom box. And I'm like, find all the drugs. Don't do cocaine because you're a pussy. Like all these things he said, and then go into the store and just steal everything because it's yours. And he's just saying all this crazy shit. And I'm like, who is this guy? He's like, you want to know how you do a drug deal, man? He's like, do you have the drugs? Do you have the money? Yeah. And then you fucking leave. Like, or you kill the guy. He literally, and he says the craziest shit. And I remember literally writing it down before they had Google or YouTube and going to my local comic book store and recanting this track. And they're like, maybe you're talking about spoken word. It's probably Rollins. And I actually bought the double record set, the Blueprints of Destruction of the World, when I was 11 years old, because I heard it on a station. I was just like, who's this nihilistic dude? I feel like I should copy his humor.
He's still out there doing this, right? He's still out there making new shit.
I saw him like 2 months ago. He was fucking brilliant. A guy, just so you know, somebody broke into his house. That's like 3/4 of his show. He talks about how he had a guy who was psychotic broke into his house, which is supposedly a compound, and that basically he had it's the craziest thing ever, and he turns that into 2.5 hours of just holy shit because it's Henry Rollins.
Henry Rollins.
By the way, Henry Rollins has not endorsed this or paid us any money.
I was going to say we just went off
like,
the rails. Like
he's texting me right now saying, "Tell him to shut the fuck up."
You should actually personally say, "Shut the fuck up."
we got about 8 minutes left in part one.
How many?
And so.
8, and you took up about 50. So we need to get more of Cory in this episode.
Yeah, there's.
I love hearing him. He's awesome. They told me how cool it was going to be, and like, wait till you hear Benny, and you know what? I'm making it like 4 cups of coffee, and I will be like a whole different person with you. Like,
listen, dude, when you come to Boston, dude, bro, please,
I love your energy. Keep your energy exactly where it is, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Don't encourage him too much. I definitely in the next part I want to talk about current touring with Seether and what you guys are doing. You guys have been on the road now for a few weeks, so I'd love to hear about how all that's going. But what I would like to kind of get into, and we can start it in this part, is you do some production and music, like producing outside of just performing, and that's not something that every guitar player, musician kind of goes for. So how did you kind of shift into that world of actually beyond songwriting, creating the whole picture?
Yeah, I got into recording, like just like everybody else. For me, I had a boom box, and I would take my boom box, hit record, play something, and then I would grab another tape and hit with another second boom box, hit record so I could solo over it, and then I would sing over it, and then I finally got a 4-track, and I thought, I am getting ready to desecrate the world. This is going to be amazing. Then an 8-track, and then I like that whole concept of being able to separate things and actually record. Even like the beginning where you just hold a mic in a room and track your own band. That was so you could hear it. It was like first it started out like, does this song sound good without playing? Does it sound good when I mash play and stuff like that? And I just kept going into that world. Rick Parasha, we did the Stereomud record, and I was deep into it at that point, but I had no confidence, as far as that side of the fence, learning how to work with a singer and talk to them about
did Marty erase all your tracks too? Did he tell you that you suck just by getting rid of them? Because that's what Marty Friedman does, and you shouldn't take it personally.
Marty Friedman?
No, I was joking because that's what he did to Jeff Loomis, and he made Jeff.
We played with him. Okay, we can get back into your
ignore him.
It's fine.
So Rick Parasha, he left the studio. He says, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I said, "I know what I want." Yes, and he says, "Okay, I'll be back." And he left the whole day, and I was just I'm like mounting, I'm in the captain chair, and the first song I did was Pain. And he came in and said, "You know what?" He says, "This is good." He had one little suggestion, like in that bridge section, can we kind of shorten it a little bit? And I think we took like 4 bars out, or 8 bars out, something, and that became the song. And he says, "Listen, keep doing what you're doing." And he says the best part of a producer is if the artist knows what he wants and gets out of the way. The best producers get out of the way and let the artist be artist. Mm-hmm. And it just it gave me a lot of confidence to have it. He had my back. At any point I could have called him and said, hey man, I don't know what the hell, but I mean, and the band was super cool. Eric Rogers, I was talking to him about where to sing from, your throat, how to project and stuff like that. And it just, from that point, I started doing things for free for local bands. And just because, we paid $500,000 for the record. I learned all this stuff. Let me pass it on and see if there's will I have interest in it? So, and it went from local bands, and then one band said, man, we'll pay you. And I was like, okay. And then I got, started getting paid more and more. And then now I have a manager that's actually getting me, legitimate gigs with labels and stuff like that. So it was a process, you know what I mean? But Rick Prasher, I got to give him the credit as far as letting me know that you've got this, you know what you want. The arrangements are good and stuff like that. He taught, you learn so much from all these great producers. I'm friends with just as many producers as probably musicians. I call to them all the time, send demos, and, we send each other mixes. And what do you think of this? And we have suggestions. And it's a small community that everybody's super cool. And because at the end of the day, you just want the best stuff out there. And the only way you're going to get it these days is, someone learns a new trick, you share it. The ones that are
I can't. Well, do you feel like there's so much like pop music and R&B and obviously rap and I don't want to say clogging up the airways, but that like now like if there's rock music of any kind that makes through, like it's less competition in the sense like fuck those guys. It's more of just like thank God that there's rock and roll on the radio or getting kind of airplay now. So why wouldn't you share whatever secrets you have, because you're still fighting against the enemy, because we're rebellion music.
That's it. Period. Always.
Yeah.
But we don't have like 20 people writing a pre-chorus either,
Yeah.
It's usually just one of us whipping it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Old school.
That's great. Well, listen, Cory, thank you for hanging. Part 1, 2020-d.com. We have another episode coming out next week with you, and we're excited to dive into that as well. Is there anything you want to tell our viewers and listeners about before we head out?
On the next episode, Benny is going to express himself so well to you guys. Like,
oh boy,
just go to part 2, me and Benny. We're going to figure all of it out on this next show.
Siobhán's so disappointed in you.
So with that, you've been 2020'd. Cory, it's been great talking to you. We can't wait to dive back in with part 2. So stick around for part 2 with Cory Lowery.
ALS awareness for Jason. Thanks for bringing it up, Cory. We love you, man.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah, listen, Vinnie Paul was fucking awesome, dude. I got to say, I went to a Pantera show when they were playing in Amsterdam years and years ago, and I went with a friend of mine, and we all smoked pot with Pantera. It was a headlining show. They were at, I can't remember where they played, but it was somewhere in Amsterdam, and we were backstage with them before they went on, and we smoked pot with them. And those guys, like, they smoked so much fucking pot before they went on that my friend couldn't move. He passed out from the pot and fell asleep on the floor backstage. And I went out and watched Pantera, and those guys were already smoking when I got there. And I was so high, I couldn't feel my toes. And those guys went out and they played the tightest set I've ever seen a fucking band play. It was the most mind-boggling thing I've ever seen.